Well, hello again and welcome back. Today we're going to have a little bit more, should we say, conventional in the review today. And what is it? Yeah, it's this old thing, a throwback to the turn of the millennium actually. This is the Nikon AF Nikkor 35 to 135 f 3.5 to 4.5. That's a mouthful for you. Well, this lens here, it's as stated, it's something that Nikon did until about 16 years ago. It was made up until the through the 90s up until the year 2000, so the turn of the millennium actually. Well, it's a AF lens, so autofocus. So yeah, if we look in the back here, it has the connection points for the camera. So this lens is a CPU lens, or yeah, a CPU autofocus lens. So it will talk to the camera and it will focus automatically with cameras that still have the internal focusing motor, i.e. the Nikon D7000 or the D7000 series. This lens, since this was made for 35mm film cameras, and I'm using a DX or APS-C Nikon body. It has a crop factor of 1.5, so this lens actually becomes a 52 to 203mm in a DX format. Well, anyway, this lens is a little bit special in one way at least. It has kind of a awkward, or kind of awkward macro setting. It's not a full macro, it's a 1 to 3.5 macro, but as you can see, this is one of those old throwback telescoping push-pull zoom lenses. But in order to get it into the macro mode, you have a silver button here. What you have to do is that you have to preferably use your thumb on it and you twist this grip. So it's kind of a hybrid actually. It's a push-pull in normal mode, normal operation in normal zoom, but when you use the macro mode, you actually push this button and twist in order to get it into macro mode. And as it says here on the lens, if I interpret it correctly, when you are in macro mode, this gets a minimum f-stop of 35. Yeah, so that can be good for some people, but it will gulp a lot of light. But anyway, one little finicky thing with the macro function on this particular lens, I'm gonna do it close to the microphone so you might hear it, is that when you start to turn here, if you don't have your thumb on the silver button that will get you into macro, when you're very close, if you heard that, yep, it will snap back into normal zoom mode again, and that can be a bit of annoying. So my advice, if you get one of these lenses, is that you keep your thumb on that button, so if you go into normal zoom range again, it's easy to get back into macro. Yeah, so it's kind of a small nitpick, should we say. Yeah, this lens has a what is it now? A 62mm front lens thread. So what I'm gonna tell you is that this lens, when I got it, I paid 600 Swedish for it, and with today's currency conversion with care of Forex, foreign exchange Forex, it's somewhere in the range of 61 euros, $70, or 48 pounds with today's currency conversion. Yeah, so it was not that much money for such a well-made piece of hardware. But anyway, it came with a back lens cover, a Nikon original back lens cover, but no front lens cover. But on the other side, it came with this UV filter, and I'm one of those that start to believe that UV filters, they might have had some influence on 35mm film photography, but when it comes to digital camera sensors, I don't really believe that a UV filter serves that much of a purpose. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, drop a line in the comment section below by all means. But anyway, I use basically the UV filter as a substitute for a lens cap. But anyway, let's move on. This is not a constant aperture, it's actually a variable aperture when it comes to the zoom, so it will go from a 3.5 to a 4.5, which is fairly decent actually, by all means, because normally most constant aperture lenses in the Nikon lineup, as of my understanding, is of f4. But anyway, this lens is mostly metal construction. It's solidly built, in my opinion, built like a tank, and it contains 15 lens elements in 10 groupings. At the widest, at 35, it supposedly has a 62 degrees of field of view, and at 135 it has a 10 degree field of view, 18 degree field of view, excuse me. Yeah, some positive and negatives. As stated before, it's a full metal construction lens. With the Nikon D7200, it's a very fast, for an AF lens, it's a very fast autofocus system in it. Yeah, and it has quite nice bokeh for being, even though it's not a extremely fast lens, it's not a 2.8 or anything like that in that caliber, but for what it is, it's a very good performer in the bokeh section. I would really have to say that actually. And it is sharp. For what it is, it's a very sharp autofocused lens. Nikon doesn't put its name on the stuff for nothing, so it's good. And it feels solid. Compared to a lot of current lenses, they feel very plasticky. This feels that it has a bit of heft to it. And in my current form, I don't really think that it's a disadvantage if a lens has a bit of weight to it. I actually prefer it when it has a bit of heft to it. But anyway, a bit of the negatives now. This is just a personal pet peeve of mine, or just a personal, even though I know this is a great bargain lens, it's a great lens for the money, the price, the quality, everything, it's really great. I don't really care that much for push-pull zooms. I don't really like them that much. You have to have some kind of really nice grip. If you want to do smooth zooms with it, even though this is a smooth zoom, you still feel that you're fighting it a little bit. So, but that's just my personal preference. Yeah, and as I've heard from some other people who own this lens, it's a little bit finicky if the autofocus functions in the macro mode. It's a little bit hit and miss. Yeah, and this is why I got the Nikon D7200, or one of the reasons that we went with the D7200. And that is that it's one of Nikon's few cameras in the APS-C lineup today that still has a AF motor in the camera body itself. So this lens will be useful for a person who is using the Nikon 5000 and the Nikon 3000 series of cameras, but you have to keep in mind that those cameras, they don't have a internal focusing motor, so these lenses will only be usable in manual focus on cameras that doesn't have an internal focusing motor, like the D3000 and 5000 series. So that's why I would say the D7000 series has an advantage with that they still have internal focusing in the camera body. But I would say that this lens is, even though it's an older style lens, it's a push-pull zoom and so on, and it's not a constant aperture, I would really recommend this for someone who wants to get a mid-range zoom lens for basically walkabout photography. And as you probably can hear in the background, the cat is chowing down on his some chow right now, so you might be hearing that in the background. But anyway, the only other thing, but you can't get everything, it has a smooth focus. Even though it's an external, it's not an internal focusing system, it's an external, and everything in the front here twists, so you can't use a tulip style lens hood on this. You have to use one of those that do complete coverage. Yeah, but that's also a bit of a nitpick. But as it is, on the DX, as probably stated before, it's a 52 to 203 millimeter. Even though it says here 35 to 135, but I would really recommend this lens for someone who wants a pretty sharp, really great quality made walkabout lens. This is something, if you're gonna take one lens with you, and you know you're not gonna you're not gonna photograph birds in flight and so on. You're just gonna need something to, you know, just on a walk or a planned excursion with a family or with friends. I would really recommend this lens. It has since on its a DX body, the 52 to 203 millimeter. It's a great, that compromise between it's a great compromise between a normal focus range, normal zoom range into a bit of a mild telefocus lens. So yeah, really recommend it, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.